Welcome back to another episode of the Field of 68's 2024 NBA Draft Prospect Profiles presented by Unified Healing. My name is Rob Dauster. I have Randolph Childress with me, and today we are going to be breaking down Terrence Shannon, one of the older guys in this draft, a fifth-year player who kind of out of nowhere last season, RC, ended up becoming one of the best jump shooters, one of the best three-point shooters in college basketball. He shot 36% on nearly 7 attempts per game, many of those off the dribble, many of those less than wide open jumpers. He finished the year averaging 23 points. He averaged 4 rebounds, just 2.5 assists per game, but he was a first team All-American caliber player for a Illinois team that finished as a top 3 seed and made it to the Elite Eight. I don't know, Randolph, if you're going to find anybody in this draft, anybody in the NBA, maybe even, that is as good as this dude when he gets out in transition. He's 6'6", he's lefty, he's built like a freight train. And if you give him any kind of lane to the rim, you are going to get dunked on.
Rob, I love him. He comes with, we got to wait till his situation legally plays out, and every team in the NBA, they'll do their due diligence on all of that stuff. But we're speaking purely about basketball here. I would draft him in this draft. There's not many guards that I'm taking over him, wings, I'd say, because I know what I'm getting day one. I don't care about his age. I actually like that about him because I know what I'm going to get from him day one. And even shooting the basketball, I think his percentages can be good. He shot 38% before from behind the three-point line. He's shown us he's capable of knocking down, jump shots. So, like you said, a wing that gets downhill, you pitch it ahead, attacks him. He's going to put so much pressure on the rim. He's going to come in day one ready to help somebody win some games. And if somebody's going to screw around and let him slip and go late in the first round to a team, and you're going to look up, it's kind of almost like, Hamiake is going to Miami, and you're going to be like, man, what in the hell were we thinking? Like, so many teams drafting guys ahead, talking about potential. And I think there's a team out there that feels like, man, we're in the win now mode. I think he comes in with a level of experience that some playoff team is going to draft, and he's going to come in there day one and bring an element to their team. He doesn't have to reinvent the wheel. He's just going to get out, push the break, attack the rim, be a catching, shoot three-point guys. He's not going to be a dominant ball handler or anything like that. You know what you're getting at his size at 6'6", 225, man. And I'm a huge fan. I think somebody's going to get a steal if he slips that late in the draft.
Yeah, I think he's someone where when you think about the transitional nature of the NBA in terms of getting up and down the floor like this, and you think about how much spacing there is, if you have him as a guy camped out behind the three-point line and someone's got to close out long on him, he's throwing a pump fake and he's taking one dribble and he's taking off from like halfway up the lane and dunking on everybody, right? Like he's got that level of athleticism. My question to you would be, if I think it's fair to say that he excelled because of his athletic gifts at the college level, right? Like obviously he's skilled, he can shoot it, he can make pull-ups, he can make threes, all that is understood. But the reason why a lot of that stuff worked is because he had a physical advantage compared to anybody else in college basketball. And some of that was a result of athleticism and God-given gifts. And some of that was a result of being a fifth-year guy that was 23 years old and older than everybody else. When you get to a league where you're going to be going up against grown men, everyone else who is the top 1% of the top 1% when it comes to athleticism and size, are you worried at all about that translating against people that are going to be the same size, the same build, and just as athletic as he is?
It doesn't bother me as much because, again, you're talking about a guy that he checks the box and that when we start talking about these other wings, they don't. We have their concerns about them athletically. We have, if the game gets up and down, can they play in that game? Can they space the floor? He's not going to be asked to be a stud or a star. He averaged 23 a game when you went out there thinking like, man, we got to slow this guy down. We got to stop him. And no one can stop him. That athleticism is a problem getting downhill. Like everybody in the NBA doesn't have 6'6" guys that play above the rim and can do it, that get out in transition that you can pitch it ahead to and go out and make plays like that. That's not, teams have it, but not everyone has that. And he brings that element. It translates day one. He's just a guy you can use it. You know, people will use it age against it, but he's a guy that's going to come through the door day one, and you're going to know what you're getting. And
Mhm.
that's really all you want. And you definitely want that in the 20s. His ceiling isn't as high as everybody else, but you're going to be able to plug him. There's not a team in this draft that wouldn't like to add what he brings to the floor.
Yeah.
You know, right now. Because some of these young guys we're talking about, these, you know, whether it's Sarr at number one or Rob, you know, we named a bunch of guys, Rob Dillingham, McKay, you know, whether it's Connect, what all these other guys, what he brings, I don't think there's a team in the league that wouldn't like to have a 6'6" guy like that, you know, that'll provide some ability, some ability to switch defensively, but capable knocking it down. But he's by far the best transition wing in college basketball. I don't think that's close.
Yeah, I mean, it's not close. He is what he is. Whether you are a world class athlete or a podcaster like me, we all understand the importance of mental and physical well being and proper recovery for top notch performance. After a 6-month season loaded with cross country travel, I can promise you that proper recovery is a priority for me these days. That's why I'm excited that Unified Healing is sponsoring this episode of the Field of 68. Unified Healing is a new and super innovative global network of wellness centers powered by Energy Enhancement System, or the EE system. If you haven't heard of the EE system yet, you'll want to listen up. This technology promotes wellness, deep relaxation, purification, and rejuvenation. Whether you're here in New Jersey or at one of the hundreds of other locations across the globe, access to a center is easy and affordable. If you're interested in experiencing the EE system technology for yourself, go to unifiedhealing.com/unified68 to learn more and find a center near you. That's UNIFYD healing.com/UNIFYD, the number 6, the number 8. No material or testimonials on the Unified Healing website are intended to be viewed as medical advice or as a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified healthcare provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition or treatment, and before undertaking a new healthcare regimen, including the EE system. When it comes to comparisons, I had a hard time coming up with someone that made perfect sense, right? And where I kind of landed on, and I don't know if you agree with this, is Kelly Oubre, a guy that is, and a lot of it has to do with the fact that they're both lefties,
Yeah.
right? And it's very hard for me to like not compare a lefty to another lefty. But I think the shooting where he's capable of making them, but
Right.
he's not necessarily someone that you got to prioritize running off the 3-point line, right? The fact that they're both about 6'6/6'7", fact they both have that athleticism, I would say that Shannon is probably a little bit better getting out in transition. But I think if you're drafting Shannon, like that is kind of the ideal like impact slash role slash what you want out of a guy. Like mid double digits, like 16 points a game, maybe part-time starter, maybe full-time starter, and kind of a player in that mold.
Sign me up, Rob. I know what I'm getting. And we can say what we want. You and I have been going through a couple of prospects right now, and we've been projecting. We don't have to project with Terrence Shannon. We
Mhm.
know the day he shows up in training camp, he's going to do those couple of things. Like, we know that. It doesn't matter. He has the athleticism to translate the size, the strength. It's going to translate day one. And teams don't have, some of these teams are drafting guys, and we're talking 2 and 3 years down the road. They don't have 2 or 3 years. Coaches and front office people don't have 2 to 3 years at time. This guy from day one translates, and I think I'm just a big fan of his. Again, I hope this legal stuff play out. Again, we're talking purely just basketball, but I love his size, I love his athleticism, and I love what he's going to bring to a team from the first day he steps on in the gym.
Yeah, so we are recording this on May 22nd. The way that things currently stand, in early June, Shannon is supposed to be able to have his day in court,
Yeah.
right? Let's assume, or let's just play a hypothetical, right? If hypothetically speaking, if he ends up being innocent, and found innocent at a jury trial, does any of that stuff impact how you view him as a prospect? And if he's found guilty, does that become the kind of thing where it's like, you know what, we can't touch this guy? How does either of those
Oh,
outcomes?
absolutely. Because if he's guilty, then he probably won't be playing on you, you know, and he won't be playing for you next year. So you're not going to waste a potential top 20 pick. on a guy. But in this draft, right, I feel as sure about him as I am with some of these undersized tweeners that's going top 10. At least I know what he is right now. He won't be a liability defensively at 6'6", 225. He's gonna be a guy that I can just pitch to the head and say, hey man, just go play. The athleticism won't bother you. When there's so many tweeners and there's so many undersized guards and there's so many what ifs, he's not a what if. He is what he is. And if a team that knows that, he's ready, he's a plug and play guy right now at 23 going on 24 years old, and that's okay. And I think that's going to translate. So if it matters a lot, like that's the key to him. I think most of the teams are like, sign me up for that because that guy helps me right now. With so many of these other guys, we just named a couple of them. They're down the road. Some of these guys we're talking about going to go higher than him, and they're not going to be able to play this year.
Mm-hmm.
So for a guy like him, I think that the trial and what that looks like is everything. I think is the key, because if the information comes back and it's all clear, and he's going to have to sit down and answer to that. He's going to have to sit down, look him in the eye on these interviews, and say what happened, what's transpired, and what his views of what it is, and if it all checks out and he's exonerated and cleared of all of that, then I think it just does anything but shoot him up the draft board, and I think he'll be a guy that finishes in the top. I think he'll be a top 20 pick.
Yeah, I don't know if he'll be a top 20 pick, but I think that he'll end up being one of those guys. I love the Jaime Jaquez comparison. One of those guys where the impact outweighs what the pick is, and you got a lot of people being like, you know what? Maybe I should have paid more attention to that dude. And when I said the Jaime Jaquez comparison, I'm not saying that they're the same player. I'm saying that
No.
when you're getting a guy that is a finished product, that is a competitor, that understands what his job is going to be and is going to step in and be able to thrive in that job. I'm with you. I think he's going to end up having a really good NBA career, and I think that it is the shooting to me, the fact that he's proven that you can't just let him shoot. You got to at least run him off the 3-point line will change what the trajectory of his basketball career is going to end up being. Listen, Randolph Childress, my name is Rob Dauster. This has been a Field of 68 NBA Draft Prospect Profile. Make sure you keep it here on the Field of 68 for the next month or so. We're going to have about 30 of these draft prospect profiles go out. We're also going to have a live in-person mock draft at some point mid to late June. There'll be more details on that coming up soon. So make sure to check back to the Field of 68 to get more info on that. RC, always a pleasure, man.
Always, my man.